order. Start out with roll call.
Leanne Kashmarsky, 20 White Oak Drive.
Dennis Ferraro, Eagles Nest Road.
Bethany Cody, Lake Enchantment.
Jim Johnson, White Oak Drive.
Linda Winslow, Norwood Street.
Eric Powers, staff planner.
Approval of the agenda.
Move to approve the agenda.
Support.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes from the previous meeting of November 12th, 2025.
Move to approve the minutes of the previous meeting.
Support.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Public comment. Anyone wishing to come forward at this point may do so. And we have a young lady here.
On live. I'd just like to say, Lynn Durant, 265 Bishop Woods Road. Reserve time on 6B.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right. Seeing no one else, we'll move on to 6A, new business, special use permit public hearing number 121025-1, proposed short-term rental unit on a property located within the urban residential zoning district. Thought I took up the address here, wasn't on there.
We got it on the screen too, and I know we left some details off the agenda this
Okay.
time.
The address is 1953 Norwood Street, Marquette, parcel tax ID 5208-300-043-10. Property is described as Strobridge Park, lot 86. Applicant is on Scott Sacker, 1933 Norwood Street in Marquette. Eric.
Yep, so we've received a complete application for a short-term rental, special use permit application for a short-term rental at 1953 Norwood. The location is shown here. I do have a kind of a more zoomed out map to show the location as well. It's currently, there's a house currently under construction on the property. It shows as vacant on this. This is kind of an older screenshot or an older imagery, older GIS imagery. The applicant does have open zoning compliance and building permits with the township, as well as open building, electrical, mechanical, and plumbing with the county. Maybe not mechanical, that might come later, but I know he's got building, electrical, and plumbing with the county, which are all, copies are all in your packet. Being that it is, so it's in urban residential, completely surrounded by urban residential. I apologize for the really zoomed in map here, but I wanted to get a good shot of that location. The township city border is, I think, 2 or 3 properties to the east, so it's right near the border. Here is the submitted site plan with the zoning compliance application. I do understand that the previous meeting to schedule this one, schedule the public hearing, there was some questions as far as the alignment and how everything would fit on that parcel. And just to make it a little bit easier to grasp, you might not be able to see that as well, I can always go back. But the parcel, again, as shown on the right, shown as vacant currently, although there is a house under construction, and then on the left is the site plan. There's the house currently under construction. I was out there today to take a picture just to confirm it was going up. But with all those open permits, we kind of knew that. We didn't receive any written or email correspondence on this one. The fact that it is under construction does make this one a little different than the rest, although the staff didn't really see any other impediments to approval. We would recommend that a condition of approval, I did list it in the packet here, a condition of approval be that once construction is finalized, that a county certificate of occupancy be issued and proof shown to the township before any short-term rental use happened. So applicant Hans Gotziger is here tonight to answer any questions. That's really all I've got unless you have specific questions for me.
Okay, thanks, Eric. Anyone have any questions for Eric before we move further?
A little premature. So yeah, I know this is a map that we do in every short-term rental, so the red dot is the proposed, green showing all the other approved in Trowbridge. And then just to see it a little easier, this is kind of the northeast quadrant of Trowbridge, showing approved short-term rentals in green, and then the proposed in red. And then that's all I've got.
So,
Eric, have we had any complaints or issues with any of the short-term rentals in Trowbridge?
Nope. I can remember, I think, one complaint, and it had to do with, it was one of them on Cherry Street, oops, wrong way. And it was a renter or a tenant, I think, parking in front of a fire hydrant or something like that. So I mean, it was, yes, a serious issue, but really not some of those speculative things we hear all the time of partying and we don't know the people. Well, I mean, they didn't know the people probably, but partying and engines revving and noise and dogs. And so I quickly got in contact with the owner, and she quickly contacted the tenant or the renter, and the issue was resolved. So.
Hans?
Hans.
Would you like to provide us with anything further before we open the public hearing?
I have no comments.
Questions?
Yeah, wasn't, at the prior meeting, we discussed this, and doesn't this applicant live right next to?
He does. He lives right next door.
So in terms of monitoring
He'll be
use
right.
and so forth?
Yep, he'll be right there.
Quite easy for this resident to monitor the use of the short-term rental?
Yep.
Okay, so I thought the reason.
This would be like 34 short-term rentals in the township, or it's in the early.
Yep, low to mid 30s. Yeah, I don't know the exact number off the top of my head, but which I don't know, Leanne. I don't think you were on the commission at the time, but we had at one point kind of run those numbers using the city's hard cap at 250, and we came up with a percentage of what that 250 was with their total number of housing units, and then we ran it with approved short-term rentals in Marquette Township with the total number of units in Marquette Township, and I think 250 in the city was 3 or 4%, maybe not even, and at the time I think the township was 1% or something like that. So I think we're well under that. Not to say that that's the end-all be-all on restrictions and numbers, but we're well below kind of our neighbors as far as the density of them that we're seeing, so.
Question for Hans. Since you live right next door, I'm assuming, I mean, we're not gonna have any safety issues or any issues, but have you had experience with short-term rentals before?
I haven't. I have family members and friends that have them, but not personally, no.
How do you plan to, like, market?
Well, what I intend to do is more of the short-term, or rather mid-term rentals for travel nurses. And then I want this in my back pocket for filling between vacancies and, you know, if I'm gonna have it furnished anyways, thought it'd be another venue for income.
Thank you.
Do you have an address on the house, like numbers on there?
I currently do not have numbers on it yet.
That's also one of the requirements to have the numbers on there for short.
During construction?
Once.
Oh,
Stuff and
right, well.
everything's permanent.
Right,
Yeah.
not now.
Gotcha.
Other questions? All right, well, let's open the public hearing at 7:09. Anyone wishing to come forward can do so now. No one wishing to speak at this point? 10. Commissioners, questions, comments, motions?
Eric, do we need specific language like we had talked about before?
We do, and that is in your packet. And just as a reminder, the will not words and language, the first word listed, even though it may say will not, the first word listed is for approval. And the second is for denial.
Question for you, Eric.
Sure.
On the sample motions, in terms of, these are our findings of fact, correct? You know, on page 6, under the heading sample motion, you resolve to approve this or deny it, whatever, you approve it for the following reasons. Do we have to read this, or, well, I guess I was trying to think if there's some way of incorporating by reference, without going through the whole reading, but we have to read it.
We would prefer it be completely read, you know.
So I have a comment, but it's not really related to this particular instance. So I'd just like to say that when we have 34 rentals, short-term rentals in a community, we have 34 houses that aren't available for families to purchase to live in. And I know that our master plan, one of the things people wanted was housing for families to live in. And they didn't want apartments to rent, they didn't want rentals. I think it was specific, they wanted housing. So it's not reflective of what our applicant is doing tonight. But I think in the future, if we don't have housing, people aren't going to come here. And our fire department chief already stated at a meeting that there's no housing for his people to live in, so their response time is shortened. So now we have longer response times. People aren't finding housing. They don't want rentals. And I think I already said that, sorry. They want to live in a community and be part of a community and stay here. So whether or not we choose to limit like the city does, and I don't know if I this is impacting not just housing for people, but it's also impacting businesses that rent rooms. So where's the magic balance here? Our school numbers are going to decrease. I just think we just need to be aware of all this as we continue to approve short-term rentals. Maybe someone else wants to talk. So it's got nothing to do with the person, so I'm not sure that the comment was in the appropriate spot.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I asked about, how many we're at. And I thought it was in the low 30s, which is low, 1% is, and people have a right to, if they're, and I know like the city had capped it off, right? So it's harder now to get a application through or whatever for a short-term rental, which is very reasonable. And when we reach that point, that may be something that we're faced with too, but, it's 1% is pretty low.
In this instance, he's actually building a house that we didn't have before, so.
Right, but I'm not talking about,
Yeah, we understand.
yeah. Mhm.
It's a good point, absolutely. But I think we're still okay, with it being such a low rate in the township. But it is a concern.
Well, we can always revisit that, put it on the agenda to talk about it, see how everybody feels about it, and how we'd like to proceed in the future.
Okay, here it goes. Be it resolved, the planning commission approves a special land use request of Hans Gottsacker to establish a short-term rental use at 1953 Norwood Street for the following reasons. One, the proposed use will be in harmony with the general purpose, goals, objectives, and standards of the comprehensive plan of the Charter Township of Marquette. This ordinance or any other plan, program, map, or ordinance adopted or under consideration pursuant to official notice by the township. Two, the proposed use in the proposed location will not result in either a detrimental over-concentration of a particular use within the township or within the immediate area of the proposed use. Three, the area for which the proposed use is used is not better suited for or likely to be needed for uses which are permitted as a matter of right within the district, in light of policies or provisions of the comprehensive plan, this ordinance or other plans or programs of the township. Four, the proposed use at the proposed location will not result in a substantial or undue adverse effect on adjacent property, the character of the neighborhood, traffic conditions, parking, public improvement, public sites or right-of-ways, or other matters of welfare, either as they now exist or as they may in the future be developed as a result of the implementation of provisions and policies of the comprehensive plan. This ordinance or any other plan, program, map, or ordinance adopted or under consideration pursuant to official notice by the township to guide growth and development.
There's two more on the next page.
The proposed use in the area under consideration will be adequately served by and will not impose an undue burden on any of the improvements, facilities, utilities, and services specified in this subsection. Six, the proposed use in the proposed location will fully comply with the requirements set forth in this ordinance and shall be consistent with the intent and proposed purpose of Article 15, principles, uses permitted in districts, and Article, I don't know what, XV, the DT performance requirements. And we need to say something about that. It needs to be in compliance with, like, all the building codes, permits.
It's right there, just keep, there's a little
Okay.
bit.
Be it further resolved that the following conditions of approval shall apply to this project. That construction be finalized with a county certificate of occupancy issued prior to the use of the property as a short-term rental.
Any discussion? Okay, so okay with that? Let's do a roll call vote. Andrew Smarsky,
Yes.
Andrew Ferraro,
Yes?
Stephanie Cody,
Yes.
Linda Winslow.
Yes,
Jim Johnson's a yes. Okay, that's unanimous, you're all set for, without us anyway.
Yeah,
I
thanks,
will-
guys.
Yes.
I will follow up tomorrow.
All right, thanks, Jared.
Thanks, Hans.
Thank you. E, wetlands, waterfront proposed zoning ordinance amendment discussion. Correct?
Yep, so since the last meeting, which I unfortunately was not able to attend, we did get an opinion back from Attorney Zappa, which is included in your packet tonight, so I would think that the majority of the discussion will center around that. He had some reservations about some of the language proposed, as he spells out in his opinion. I did kind of go through and highlight some sections that I'd like to discuss from that opinion. In short, he, as written, I mean, and I agree with him that the cause is a noble one, that we should protect wetlands, but in short, in doing so, we don't want to create a bunch of nonconformities. One, because if we were to approve the 75-foot buffer as written, for example, this building wouldn't have been built, or the fire hall wouldn't have been built, or plenty of houses in Trowbridge wouldn't have been built. So by enacting the language as written, we would create numerous nonconformities throughout the township, as well as the just administrative burden of administering this from the local level would be, I think, too much for the township to handle.
So I have a question, Eric.
Sure.
So, what we're looking at with the red marks on it
Yep.
are, that's not what Mr. Zappa recommended. It's not included in anything? What Mr. Zappa recommended didn't get moved into what we had. Is that true?
No, the red, the text as shown, and these, so it's a page, 2 pages from Article 2 definitions, and then 1 page from Article 20 miscellaneous provisions. That is the language as originally presented without the Article 18 amendments that Jason and I chose to exclude on the basis that before we got Attorney Zappa's opinion, we saw including the Planning Commission as a part of just approving any construction within 75 feet of a wetland kind of fell into that.
Okay.
This is gonna be way too much administratively, and it's gonna draw out these approval processes way too long, and we didn't see it as feasible to do.
So Mr. Zappa's opinions didn't get put into something for us to look at?
Yeah, it's in his letter.
It's in his letter.
I know it's in his letter, but it's not put into the, wetland waterfront proposed zoning ordinance map. Okay, so,
None of this has changed according to what he says.
right,
I have not,
right.
I have not.
Trying to ask.
Yeah,
I
that
have
is,
not- I have not touched the proposed language in light of Zappa's,
The red ones are
Okay.
the red is what's wrong.
okay.
correct.
So oftentimes when the township board gets a recommendation from Mr. Zappa, we actually have it in a different color, kind of in what we're looking at, so we are able to compare easier. It's hard for maybe all of us, maybe just me, to go back to what Roger's recommending and me to put it back and forth.
I can help you with that.
You can help me put it back and forth?
Yeah, I can help you with that, because I'm looking at what Attorney Zappa, my understanding, I want to thank Attorney Zappa for his thoroughness in reviewing this. Basically, I think what he did was point out some procedural pitfalls, some due process pitfalls, but you have to take issue with what you said initially, Eric. He didn't say we can't have a 75-foot buffer zone. In fact, in his letter, he suggests specific language
Right. I
for
don't,
it to be approved.
I didn't think I said that, but,
Oh, okay, well, then I misunderstood you.
yeah,
So if I may,
please, yeah.
I'm going to make a motion tonight to approve 3 amendments to the zoning ordinance. And I have, to answer your query, pass these down. This is for you. And there's one for you and one for Jason. So I think what Attorney Zappa did is he approved an addition to the existing unchanged definition. And he approved the definition of a buffer zone. And that's Exhibit 1. Okay, what I have in red is right from Roger Zappa's letter. For example, if you look at page 4 of his letter, he didn't want to modify the existing definition, but he suggested adding language to be sure it was a wetland which was defined under section 30301(1)N of the Natural Resources Environmental Protection Act, according to Michigan statute. And so what I have proposed here in exhibit number 1 is to just incorporate his recommendation as an additional part of the definition under Article 2. Also, on page 5 of his letter, in the fourth full paragraph, he recommends revising the definition of the wetland buffer zone to the following, and then he sets it out. And so on the second page of Exhibit 1 that I gave you, I just incorporate word for word as a definition, in addition to the definition of Mr. Zappa's language.
I don't see where you addressed 2.02C, with the zoning administrator and/or the.
No, those I've given up on. I have not. In other words, I'm going, this is the overall point of view is this. In his letter, Attorney Zappa has pointed out some pitfalls that were in existing language that was sent to him for review. He has come back with acceptable language for, number 1, defining a wetland, number 2, defining a wetland buffer zone, and number 3, under Article 20, his language, he set forth language regarding the 75-foot naturally vegetated wetland buffer area. Okay? And that's on, also on page 5 of his letter. So if you look at exhibit number 1 and number 2 that I gave you, and attached, if you take the paper clip off, you see I actually gave you 3 exhibits. Exhibit number 1, exhibit number 2, and exhibit number 3. So exhibit 1 and 2 take his language exactly from the letter that he wrote. So it incorporates exactly his recommendations. Exhibit number 3 is different because I am proposing that a wetland delineation report be required for site plan and plot plans. He did not have a chance to review that recommendation because it wasn't sent to him. And if you want to harken back to our October 8th, 2025 meeting, the Planning Commission approved by consensus certain amendments, certain language for purposes of going to Eric and to Jason for their further review and tweaking. Okay? You remember that? Okay. I have copies of that consensus if anybody would like to see them. So if you want to see what was agreed upon on October 8th to be sent to Eric and to Jason, we all agreed by consensus these are things that we wanted to see and they should look at them and tweak them. Okay. So in that, there were changes to the language of the definition, and there were changes to, there was a definition of a wetland buffer zone, and then there were some changes to Article 18, some additions to Article 18, which talked about the requirement for a wetland delineation report by a qualified professional, a wetland professional. Okay. So at the November 10th meeting, when Eric and Jason came back to us and said, here's what we got, okay, the definition part is okay, the addition of a wetland buffer zone and the definition is okay, the 75 foot is okay, but we don't think the changes to Article 18 should go because they'd be redundant and create some kind of a burden. I was completely spaced out at that meeting for some reason. I had a mental lapse, and I agreed that some of the provisions that had been suggested and approved by consensus for Article 18 were burdensome in terms of, it didn't need to make sense. But what completely slipped my mind is that the wetland delineation report requirement was in that Article 18 language, and it just slipped my mind that that wasn't also included to be sent to Attorney Zappa. I think that's a key element that we need to have, because if you don't know where a wetland is, or if there even is a wetland on a piece of property, then having a natural buffer zone around wetlands doesn't make sense, because you won't be able to tell. And I think we talked about this, and I think, Jim, you and I
I
engaged.
remember asking, how do you determine?
How do you determine it, right? And I pointed out, like, for example, on the property where my house is, I have probably 1.5 acres of seasonal wetlands. If you come out there, if I was gonna sell my house and the buyer came out in the middle part of June, anywhere from the middle part of June to the end of August, beginning of September, he'd look at some areas and say, oh, that's a nice place to build a house. Well, it's right on a seasonal wetland, because from the end of September up until the end of May, that's wet. And it's not just flooded, it's actually a wetland determined not just by the seasonal wetland inundation, but by the types of plants, by the type of soil, and by the type of creatures that live there. So that's why I thought, why don't we just use a wetland delineation report, one it's commonly used. Eagle requires them. Eagle, when they're evaluating a property for wetland, allows a private developer or private landowner to have their own wetland delineator. And they publish on their website a 22-page list of wetland consultants, and 6 of them are here in 6 or 7 or 8 of them are here in Marquette, and I can show you those in a minute. Anyway, so that's why I have prepared these 3 exhibits, 2 of which are right from Roger Zappa's letter, one of which, Article 18, is not, because he never had a chance to review that, and I take responsibility for not catching that during the other meeting. So I just want to, if I can point out to you some other things in terms of what's required under state law and federal law and so on and so forth in terms of defining a wetland. Let me give you a copy of the administrative code, State of Michigan Administrative Code. This is Eagle's Department of Environmental Quality and Water Management and Protection, Division of Wetland Protection. And you can see, hopefully you get a chance to look at it. That contrary to what's stated in the staff report, a wetland delineation report, such as this, is totally consistent with state and federal law, and actually is required by Eagle in determining whether or not there's a wetland on a piece of property. And in the exhibit that I've given you here, you can see under paragraph 2C that under paragraph 2 and then paragraph 2C that in assessing if there's even a wetland present or if it's not present on a property, Eagle will accept a private individual's or developer or a private individual's wetland professional's on-site report. And if you look a little further on here, you'll see in paragraph 3, this is not necessarily relevant to the wetland delineation requirement, but you can see that there's all kinds of elements in determining a wetland, presence of soil, vegetation, etc., even whether or not it supports state or federal endangered, threatened plants, fish, wildlife, etc. So that's what Eagle requires. And here, and I mentioned, they publish on their website a 22-page list of consultants, and here's a list of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and it's actually missing 2 because it doesn't have Jeff Cook and Jerry Branch from Superior Watershed Partners. Here's an Eagles list of wetland consultants here in Marquette. So these are, and also another thing too is very interesting is Eagle will actually do a wetland delineation report for you, and they'll charge you. They were charging $500 for the first acre and then $50 for every other acre, but in the recent thing online, the recent website provision online, it's $250 for the first acre, and then $50 for every other acre up to 5 acres. So that's areas that they don't even regulate. But if you want to know if you have a wetland on that property, they'll do it. And then for wetland properties 5 acres and more, the maximum they charge is $1,000. So this isn't going to be any kind of a extensive burden on a developer or a landowner to get a wetland delineation report. And let me show you.
It's $1,000 max.
Yeah, $1,000 max
for
no matter what the size is. That's Eagle. Let me give you now an example. And the wetlands delineation reports are quite extensive. Some of them are 30 pages long, and here's just 4 pages from a wetland delineation report that was done on the wetland Lakeshore Drive restoration area, done by Jeff Cook from Superior Watershed Partnership. And it starts out with a wetland delineation form, and you can see this is a form from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. And it summarizes different findings, what is their vegetation, wetland vegetation present, is there wet hydric soil present, is there wetland hydrology present. It talks about the high water table, it talks about the saturation point. The next page, part of any wetland, and I could have given you like several from several different cities. In fact, you remember when they were going to talk about the Eagle Mine Road, we had a company from downstate come up here and do a extensive wetland delineation report. But you can see from the second page here, they show a map exactly where the wetland is located. The yellow is the wetland boundary as designated. Page 3 of this talks about the vegetation that's consistent with the wetland and what they find. Page 4, again, an Army Corps of Engineer sanctioned report form, talks about the types of soil, and if you look at the full report online, you'll see they even have core samples of the soil, they have pictures of the vegetation, and so on and so forth. So these are recognized, easily done delineation reports. They're sanctioned, recognized by Eagle, by Michigan law, and they can easily be done.
So, are these forms all standard across the country?
Yes,
This is Army Corps of Engineers.
they're standard forms. These are, if you look at,
Why does it say North Central Northeast region then? When's that?
that's the region, that's the Army Corps of Engineers region that we are in. So this is for our.
So are there different plants and soil samples on this one compared to something down south?
Probably, I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah.
We might.
So then if somebody gets this, I mean, at what point does it determine it's a wetland? Like, are there certain points to this, or I mean, what?
Well, on the-
Who determines it's a wetland then after all this stuff's filled out?
Well, the wetland professional does. If the wetland professional fills this
So he
report,
fills this all out and then,
and then he gives it to whoever needs to see it.
so he's just using a judgment call then?
Well, there's a box here on the first page on the right, where it's first outlined, Jim. It says, is a sampled area within a wetland, yes or no? And yes,
Right.
optional wetland site, and then you'd put an ID number in there.
Yeah, these are just, I mean, when you, for example, Mr., well, I can never pronounce his name and it embarrasses me, Savalainen? Mr. Savalainen
O'Brien.
comes there when there's a site plan, and he presents all these diagrams. Well, we know he's reliable because he's a civil engineer. If you get a wetland delineation report, and usually in the prefatory language of the report, or at the end of the report, it states the person's qualifications, a little brief bio, why they're qualified. So you can rely on these wetland delineation reports, and as I pointed out in the Michigan Administrative Code section that I gave you, Eagle recognizes that they can't do every wetland delineation, and they will accept a wetland delineation report from a qualified professional. And so that's kind of the scheme of things here. So, in terms of the position of the, and I, believe me, I'm making these points and I'm arguing for a position here, and I'm not trying to in any way denigrate the skill or expertise of our planning staff, because I think we got the best planning staff in the county here. But I think you're wrong by saying that the provisions that you already have in Article 18 are sufficient to determine where a wetland is, or, you know, if there is a wetland on property. And here, let me just, here's a copy of, there's 3 provisions in Article 18. Here they are, that have the word wetland. And this is, Article 18 has to do with, well, as Eric, if you know, is site plan approval and plot plan approval. So the first time it appears is under plot plan. And it says that the following information should be submitted to the zoning administrator for review. Number 6, natural features affecting development, rock, bluff, water, wetland. Well, I mean, how do you know it's a wetland if you don't have a qualified professional telling you it is? You just rely on the developer, say, oh yeah, that's a wetland. Well, maybe it is or maybe it isn't. But unless you have a report, you won't know by a professional. The next paragraph under site plan review, or the next page, I should say, page 7 of Article 18, paragraph number 24, it requires that whoever is developing the land gives you the location and names of all existing wetland surface drainage ways. Well, how do you know there's a wetland surface drainage way, and how do you know if it's going to be within 75 feet of this buffer zone that Mr. Zappa thinks we can enact, unless you have a qualified professional telling you there's a wetland on the property? The other place, and the third place that appears in Article 18 is if there's land clearing. And you say here, well, you know, they have to get all necessarily soil erosion and sedimation control permits, wetland permits, or flood. Well, I mean, it's like putting the cart before the horse. How do you know that there's any wetland if you haven't had a wetland delineation? So, and in terms of burden on you, I think we talked about this, and I think Leanne brought it up when we had our October 8th meeting, like, well, wait a minute. you know, all these things here, who's gonna make all these determinations? And so we said at the time, well, it's just gonna be a checkbox on your site plan review checkbox, because it's not gonna be your burden, it's gonna be the person who develops. All they have to do is give you just like somebody shows you a copy of a soil erosion report. Well, they give you a copy of a wetland delineation report, you just check the box. You don't have to, you don't have to do anything.
Can I ask you, Eric, how do you do this right now if you get something handed into you that addresses wetlands? Is there something that you ask them if they've had it assessed, or they have any kind of a study done? Are they required to have any kind of a study done, or, you know, what happens right now without any of this in effect?
We presently don't require a study or a report. I have used, I think, Eagle Maps in the past to look and see what wetlands are and where they have them mapped. I did speak with an Eagle staff person, and they admitted that even on their end, the maps that they use, they're all over the place and not consistent with each other, and that was a concern that they had when they saw that we were considering some wetlands amendments. Denny, I thank you for putting as Roger recommended, that language kind of back into the zoning ordinance with the exhibits you provided. One question, so in the, let's see, the statutory language you provided, where you're talking about the cost of the wetland delineation report. So under 6A3, fee of $500 for 1 acre or less, the department will perform an on-site review of a mapped, flagged, and otherwise identifiable area to confirm specific boundaries established by a wetland professional. So the fees that Eagle would charge would be on top of the wetland delineation report cost that the developer or the property owner would incur when they hire one of these 6. Is that correct?
Yeah, but if you go to Eagle's website, you go under the division, whatever, the water division and wetlands, you'll see that they will actually perform this report for you. And it's I think this administrative code, which is still in effect, I think this has probably been the $500 fee has probably been supplanted now. It's a $250 fee, and the maximum is $1,000 no matter what size. That's right on their website. So you could go to Eagle and say, hey, can you do this for me? And they would do it if they have, you know, they're busy. I met with, did you meet with Larissa Schmock?
No.
Ryan? Was it Ryan from, they're over here by Joe Burke's Dairy, that office?
Right, yeah, no, I didn't speak with either of them.
I met with them
Okay.
personally. I met with them, not in connection with amending this ordinance, but I met with them maybe almost a year ago. They're swamped, no pun intended. And they need all the help they can get. So and Tri-Media does this. I mean, I've seen them on Eagles Nest Road. And to your point, the wetland maps don't show all the wetlands and where they are. I mean, my property is not shown on a wetland map, even though I'm regulated by Eagle because I'm within 1,000 feet of the lake. But it doesn't show me, if you go on to the interactive map, my pit parcel is not even shown. And I'll give you another example. Just towards the end of Eagles Nest Road, just before the Superior Watershed Partnership's community forest and wetland area, there was a parcel. And about a year and a half, 2 years ago, neighbors on my road, and we'd walk our dogs and so on and so forth, we noticed that a contractor had gone in there and started tearing up trees and doing this. And then when we walked down to the beach, we noticed that the little rivulet that used to come from the wetlands draining down into the beach had been totally rearranged and everything was draining. I don't know, I reported it to somebody, who then reported it to Eagle. The Army Corps of Engineers came out and put a cease and desist up, but that wetland would have been completely destroyed if somebody hadn't walked along on the road, and, Eagle never would have known about it. So, the whole intention here is not to make things burdensome for our planning staff. But if somebody wants to build a house, if somebody wants to build a commercial place, well, they ought to determine whether or not they're gonna be destroying something that's important and has been deemed important by our participation in all kinds of climate adaptation things, and we can talk about all this. I mean, it's just part of doing business. If you want, you gotta protect what we got here, because more people are coming here. And if we don't protect our beautiful paradise that we live in, we're gonna be out of luck, man. We gotta have some control over it, and that's what zoning is about.
Yep.
So that's all I'm trying to do here.
So all of what you're saying is leading to what we'd like to do is have this included in the 18C, or the 1803C, just have that included in anything that's handed out to people that are going to develop or build something, just so they can see they have to submit something like that.
Just,
That's what you're.
yeah, when they come in here for a site plan approval, they hand the report to Eric or to Jason, and Eric or Jason just check off the box. And then when they prepare, like, we don't get individual approvals of plot plans to, well, we did tonight, but usually it's a site plan. And
I guess I'm kind of surprised that something isn't in there like this already.
Yeah.
I guess I just kind of assumed with all the wetland stuff that, there'd be something there for these guys to say, oh, wait, there's a wetland. And somebody just says, nope.
yeah,
Oh, okay.
I mean, that's why we developed, we just amended our blight ordinance. Look how long we went back and forth, and
Yeah.
we said, okay, well, it was a good ordinance. Whoever developed the ordinance did a good job when they did it, but then things have changed, and things have changed. And one thing I noticed is that Attorney Zappa did review our proposed findings of fact, and he didn't comment on them, and didn't say they weren't any good. Maybe he doesn't want to comment, but he didn't say those weren't any good. So, and in those findings of fact, we pointed out, or the proposed findings of fact, which also we agreed to send him for review, that, population has increased dramatically for our township, and people are coming here. I mean, I think the county climate action plan calls our county a receiving county for climate migrants. So we're gonna, I just think it's time to do something.
I think by adding that C into that Article 18, it takes the burden off them, planning administration, right? And also, if they are using Eagle to do a delineation report, maybe the state of Michigan then has that opportunity to update their map for wetlands or whatever. That's providing them with updated information, which helps at a state level moving forward.
Yeah, I don't have a problem putting that in there. The only problem I have, though, is adding to the cost of building a house. It's already so high anyway, and instead of trying to reduce the cost of building houses, we're adding to it by, putting more cost into it. And, I mean, I still understand the point. It's, it's something good to have in there, but still at the same time, it could, it's another $1,000, or, is this, if there are two different lots involved, or more than two different lots, do you have to pay for each separate lot to get,
It's
something,
if there's a
report for both different lots, or is it all on one, whatever you're gonna develop?
And that's, Jim makes a good point. That was actually in my discussion with the person from Eagle. That was one of their concerns, was what happens if I own a parcel and the parcel next door has, and it's not like I'm gonna pay for a report on the parcel next door, but say there's an established delineated wetland on the parcel next door. How do I manage that on my parcel? Do I need to stay 75 feet back, or am I paying for a report on the next parcel over? So there's questions that came up that way too. And in the point of the housing crisis, as it's been dubbed, and Denny, I completely agree that, and the whole time that we've been doing this, I mean, I've made it clear that I think we need something else in the ordinance to further protect wetlands. But when we are in the midst of a housing crisis, this is not gonna help with that, point blank.
Well, but then what are you talking about? So you want to just destroy nature and just
No,
because,
I'm
why
not.
not have people, if people.
I want to protect wetlands, but I want to make sure it's put into the ordinance in a way that the township can reasonably and responsibly administer, enforce the rest.
If we put this in there, it would require anybody, no matter what site they're on, to get a report, because even if they're on a bluff or a rock, we'd be like, well, you can't determine that there's no wetland there, we have to have a professional do it. So they would have to pay for it, no matter if the site absolutely, we feel, but we're not professionals, does not have a wetland on it, they would still need to buy a report.
And then like what you also, you know, you think about, well, what happens if, it's a seasonal wetland and somebody builds and then they have a moisture or water problem with their foundation because they didn't know truly that, oh, this gets wet.
So they would need a
Those-
report, but that's the thing,
Yeah,
you
how
have to
do you
require
balance that?
everybody, it's not a,
It's not a one,
and I think that's what Eric's trying to say, is how
So if
do you
you're-
administrate it, how do you do it where you're requiring every single site plan?
So if you're gonna buy a lot in a subdivision, it's already been, you know, cleared and all ready to build on, if you put that in there, would you have to go and spend money to get a report on this then too?
Probably not.
Well, it says everybody that applies
That's
for a,
tough for me to say when it's not official language. I mean,
right?
Well,
if we do move forward with the language Denny proposed tonight, I mean, it would have to go before Roger again, and then we would give another opinion like this. So, again, I don't think we should completely do away with this. I just want to make sure that we do it in, again, a responsible way. Is all I'm saying.
So we all agree with example 1 and 2, right?
based on Roger's recommendations.
To
Correct,
update the definition to make it consistent with the state. Yep.
correct.
can we send
So-
them number 3 too and ask his
Yeah,
advice?
absolutely. Yep.
Sure, sure.
So,
And our concerns about, well, you know, would this, like Jim brought up, would this be applicable, if you were purchasing a lot in a subdivision? I wouldn't think it would be, because I would think the developer
it's already.
would already have had to have had that looked at where they can
For his
sell
site.
lots.
Well, not according to this language, it says all site and plot
If
plans
there's
shall require
Previously
submission
been a site plan.
of a wetland delineation report of an on-site review, so it says right there that you'll have to get that done.
Well,
We're getting closer.
that could be modified. and,
Yeah, we could, yeah.
In the consensus,
What I mean is to ask Roger about that.
yeah.
See if you can word it a different way,
Right,
you know, where,
exactly.
I mean, it's just seems like,
Don't wanna
you know, you're
burden
still
somebody
leaving so much to
unnecessarily.
Right.
interpretation or judgment here, you know, by somebody saying, just like even one of these people who says, this is a wetland, you know, how are they determining it's a wetland? They fill all this form out, but, you know, it seems to me there should be some kind of a point system, and all these things in there should add up to some kind of points, and, all right, if you hit 85 points, it's a wetland. If it doesn't, then it's not a wetland. Because somebody has to make a judgment call on whether it's a wetland or not, right?
The professional,
Right.
would make a judgment.
They're making a judgment call, though.
Well, anything is a judgment. You go to a doctor to have your brain examined, they're making a judgment call.
They're just filling the stuff out and saying what's on it, and then they're saying, well, okay, in my opinion, this is a wetland.
Well, yeah, but they're trained, in order to be
I
even.
understand.
They might be credentialed or,
I understand that, but
They do have credentials.
So they're
They go to training
credentialed?
to Say, okay, this is a
Right.
wetland soil, this is
Yeah.
wetland, you know, vegetation, this is a seasonal wetland, this is a forested
I
wetland.
get it. I get it.
Mhm.
You know, I mean,
It just seems like they should have a form that if there's so much of this on there, that on there, it hits, you know, a certain percentage, and then it's cut and dry, it's a wetland.
Yeah, I think if you
Might be
would
there,
go
Jim.
online and take a look at this one, for example, you would see it's an extensive report. They really.
I can see that.
You know, but I mean, this is only 4 pages out of about 30.
Right.
And I mean, they really analyze it. They take soil core. So,
All right, well, we'll get it to him and see what he says about this and, go from there.
Lynn had reserved time
Yeah,
too.
and-
What?
Forgive me?
She requested time to speak.
Yes. Okay, public comment.
I'll put my 2 cents into that. Good discussion. One of the things that I did want to mention was the delineation report that was missed in this part of it. So I agree with Danny that it should be part of that. And I think since Michigan is swamp, basically, and so is Minnesota, for the most part, the default should be, where is the swamp? You know, it's assumed that it's here. Let's make sure it isn't, rather than the other way around. So I think it should be part of the application. And then staff checks off, yes, so we have a report, because those are professionals. They know what they're doing. So that's one of the points I wanted to make. 75 feet, I had to stop and think what that was. So from a sense of reference, I didn't know what that was. So I looked up my house, and it's 40 to 50 feet long, 3-bedroom, 1,400 square feet roughly. Garage is 20 feet, 25 feet, 30 feet maybe. So the length of a 3-bedroom ranch is not even 75 feet that you're talking about being away from. I think that's excessive. And the reason I say that is because my other frame of reference, as you commonly do with, you know, we all look with what we know, right? So in Big Bay, along Squaw Beach, between Squaw Beach and the Lighthouse Road, is all swamp, totally swamp. And there's a gentleman at the end of Squaw Beach that owns a big part of that. He's been selling pieces of it off. So there are restrictions, and clearly Powell Township is different than ours because the terrain is different, the rules are different. But in order to build, you're allowed to build near the swamp. And I'm pretty sure it's 15 feet from the edge, the high water edge of the swamp. But it can only be, at that distance, a temporary structure. So you can put up, and I didn't see anything in here, you can put up a shed if it's on posts, and it could be removed. So that's another rabbit hole for you to go down if you want to consider temporary structures. But swamp is, and they call it a swamp, but it's a wetland because it goes both ways into Lake Superior. It's wide enough, it does qualify, you have to go through Eagle and everything to do anything on it. But I guess my point is, first of all, I think the 75 feet is extremely excessive. When
it's
you-
already in the ordinance.
I know, I'm still saying, I think it's excessive.
I mean, it's in our,
It's not in the state side, it's in ours, right?
it's in section 2013. It says, lots or parcels of land having water frontage shall maintain a minimum setback of 75 feet from the beach.
Well, a beach is different than a wetland.
Well, that's
It's
right,
handled
but that, I think what we did is we kind of looked at that. I mean, so what do you think, 50 feet would be more reasonable?
Well, like I said, with this temporary structure, 15 feet is enough. So I don't know, I don't want to make that determination, but I think 75 is excessive. Because like I said, if you're picturing a property, look at yours then, and look at that edge, and then go back the length of a 3-bedroom ranch house with 2-car garage. You'd never get a house on that. I think that's what Eric's trying to say,
Well,
is that we have to be practical with our distances so that we don't outlaw, still with the protection of the state, based on their determination of the line, that you're not disallowing building so far away that it's compromising what you're trying to accomplish. I think there's a middle ground.
Well, isn't it, let me just ask you a question. So, isn't 75 feet the setback from a road for a house in rural residential?
Rural residential front yard setback, I think is 35.
35 feet? Okay.
Yeah,
You know, if you wanted to say 35 feet, 40 feet,
yeah, I'm just saying to consider
something like that, I mean,
I think 75, 60.
I think we just picked 75 because it was in the, and we were talking, you know, about that for a long time.
And that's why I had to say, okay, what is 75 feet? I don't know, but
Well, it's,
it's longer than my house.
we may maybe belaboring the point, but, let's see, this lot, the parcel, subject parcel for the 6A, the lot with the red dot on it is 60 feet wide.
Well, okay. So you'd basically have to have an empty lot in between the development and the wetland. An empty Trowbridge lot,
Yep.
more than that.
Yeah, that's a standard single Trowbridge lot. I mean, the ones on either side, I think, are obviously double lots, yeah.
And that's not to say you'd encroach on the wetland. Once it's delineated, you'd have that edge and you'd be able to say, maybe with history, and typically they change. The Big Bay one ebbs and flows, and as it gets wider, there are houses built on the swamp side, but they're still far enough away from, I guess what they'd say, the historical high water that they can build. But closer toward the end, where it's narrower, you can only have that 15-foot temporary.
Well, I just noticed this section 2013, it talks about a minimum 25-foot natural vegetation buffer. So,
That's what made me think 25, and I thought 75 seems,
I mean, I'm okay with 25. I think we just picked 75 because it was already in the ordinance, right?
Yeah, we didn't change anything, it was there.
yeah.
Yeah, so if we
That's all I
want,
wanted to point out.
yeah, if we wanted to change that there would probably be a big discussion about.
I think also another
People might
issue,
have a recommendation.
Yeah, and I know, yeah, depending on people who own camps, you know, if that camp was there way before you bought the property, they don't make you move anything. I mean, ours is almost on the edge of the,
Unless you tear it down.
Yeah. Or
you build around it.
One wall at a time, right?
One wall at a time, yeah.
How far do you think we are now where the commissioners are sitting from the wall? 25 feet, 30 feet? 25, 30 feet maybe? 20?
Yeah, it's not,
The ceiling tiles are, what, 2 feet?
oh, that's not a, what is that?
25 feet?
Yep, 26.
Okay, I mean,
That's not very far back.
it's not.
No, people make you go a lot farther back now, I can tell you.
Well-
If you're building a camp on a lake, you're going back far.
I think there should be differentiation between like a lake and a wetland, because a lake is, you know, I mean, you kind of want to be back from, especially Lake Superior, more than 25 feet.
You're gonna be in the lake.
Because of the ownership too, on a lake. That's
You know,
different.
and on private lakes, you know, it's kind of hard to just generalize 25 feet into all this when you have all these different kinds of bodies of water. And also, you know, with the wetlands, you say, all right, this is wetlands. Well, where does the wetland end on your property?
That's what the delineation report would show.
That's why you need that.
They're gonna, that's what I'm saying, that's almost like a judgment call too. To say where, yeah.
Those are trained professionals.
Huh?
They're licensed, trained professionals.
Okay.
Yeah, and they'll actually, I mean, you saw the picture.
There's a
I mean, they'll actually
criteria.
say, here's the boundary, and they'll give you a.
I think they're an environmental engineer.
There's,
Is there?
as we learned at that
Tile.
lunch meeting, whatever it was called, don't get bogged down or whatever, there's
Yeah.
specific biological species including animals, plants. There's specific,
Soil.
excuse me,
Yeah, they can
specific
say
biological
it stops
things that they're
here
looking for, yep.
Okay.
They'll know, I mean.
Right.
And then you'll have certainty for the owner too. I mean, that's what it is. If you want to reduce it from 75 to, I don't know, 30,
Well, I don't know.
Are there
Yeah.
different requirements
40, 50?
for building when you're building on, like, you know, Lake Superior or, you know, a lake versus a river versus a swamp versus, you know,
So we've
are they all the
just-
same?
We've just got that,
Maybe
as
by
Denny just
county,
pointed out,
communities.
let's see, section 20.13, which as staff interprets it, almost always deals with a lake proper, as you think of a lake, Lake Superior or one of the inland lakes. So I don't, while you could, I guess, you could make a case for a wetland being included in that definition, even though it's not currently listed.
Well, that's what we originally were talking about.
Right, yes.
Including wetland as a water body.
Yep, and now I do remember that discussion.
That
yeah.
wouldn't have satisfied Rogers.
Right, that probably falls under the grounds of regulating a wetland, as he states.
It'd be contrary to the state
Right,
definition
yeah.
anyway, yeah, so. Okay, I mean, why don't we just send these 3 to Roger?
Yeah.
I've got some points that I want to look into, so again, I think we should move forward with this, but again, we just need to do it in a responsible way, in a way that not just, and I'm not saying I don't want to put more administrative burden on myself and give more work to myself. This is for, I'm thinking 20, 30, 40 years down the line, when this
Yeah.
language is put into place. I don't want it to be something that is contrary to itself or contrary to state law or something that we can't even enforce. So that's where I'm coming from.
No, I know, and I mean, I've been on this body for almost 4 years, and I've never taken a position against development. And there's gonna be more development coming our way. But if more development means that all the natural areas that we depend on for filtering water, and I'm particularly, because I don't have city water, I drink out of the ground, filters toxins. And believe me, in my area, it prevents erosion, because when those snow melts come, those wetlands take that water and they hold it. And then eventually it seeps down and it goes into the Jacobsville sandstone, and then you can see it. I got like a 20-foot ledge. I can see it seeping into the lake through the structure of the sandstone. So it controls flooding. And I mean, and then for fishermen, these are birds and fishermen. They depend on the little animals and stuff that live there, you know. So anyway, I'm not against it at all. I just want to be sure that this area that we live in stays like this to a reasonable degree, and it doesn't get paved over like a
Agreed.
parking lot.
Agreed.
All right, so I'm gonna make a motion to send exhibits number 1, number 2, and number 3 that have been submitted to my fellow planning commissioners today, to send those to Roger Zappa for his review and any advice he can give in terms of, I don't know if he can give advice on the size of the setback, but those are, you and.
And that's one of the, like I said, that's one of the points I'm gonna
You and
do a
Jason can talk.
little more research on.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so that's my motion.
Support?
I'll support.
Okay, any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. 7A, unfinished business, Marquette Charter Township Master Plan 2025 update discussion. Eric?
Yep, so you guys hopefully have been reviewing, I think 1 through 8 you have in hand. I've gotten some comments back from Linda. We have not put those in yet, but I think we're gonna kind of wait to get everything and then put it all in. Staff has not received 9 and 10 yet. Those would be the final 2. But as soon as we do, we'll read through them, and then those would be on a future agenda. Once that draft is complete, We would need to have a public hearing, and then a 90-day review. So that final draft after the public hearing would be considered by the planning commission, and if approved by the PC or recommended for approval to the board, a 90-day review period would be needed. Jason did request through MISTA, who was the granting agency, an extension through April, just to make sure we fit it all in. Grant currently, I think, ends, I'm pretty sure it's end of December. So we're pushing up on that pretty quick here, but we're confident that we'll get that extension due to the kind of the circumstances that were out of our control with the
Grant.
contractor. So.
So at what point do you think that the township board will be able to view the plan?
We're hoping for February.
So they won't get it until we,
Well,
the
to view the
township,
plan. To view the plan or,
review it, whatever you want to call the terminology, but, we're looking at it as a planning commission, the township board, when will they look at it before the public looks at it? Or will
Good
they
question.
not? I mean, that was,
I mean. I
they're,
don't
they're,
see why
they're
they wouldn't.
interested.
Yeah.
Yeah, so ask Jason
Yeah,
and
I
then
will.
let us know, and you can certainly tell John, who can then tell the board.
Yep.
Yeah, perfect, thank you. I love to read it, so just saying. It's really,
There were a couple things in here I thought maybe should be changed.
you have to email those to them.
You want me to email to you?
That would probably be easiest, unless it's something that we all want to discuss or kind of a more higher level point, but if it's kind of the minor stuff, yeah, please just email it.
I guess the one thing that would be kind of interesting to discuss, see what everybody else thought, is Linda and I were talking about this before, was for under assessment of future needs, especially recreation, is for the county, township included actually, to think about the need for a central ice arena. Since Marquette's is not in very good shape, and Nagani, they don't have money to fix it, that's probably gonna go down and not be able to be used because compressors are shot. So,
Yeah. The high school hockey team or the high school players, they don't want to play on an outside ice rink with no
that's an
roof.
embarrassment for that arena. And I just think something should be addressed in here about, we had talked before, I was on the Lake Arena Committee before, and they talked about getting a central authority for the whole county to try and come up with, central area for ice arena with, a couple of different sheets and have a millage that kind of supports it, since, the city probably isn't gonna keep supporting this at $1 million a year. And then it'll be kind of a lot easier to fund it instead of just on city taxpayers. And so, maybe there's something we could do to get the ball rolling on this, because I think it's imperative that something gets done, because otherwise there's not gonna be much hockey in this town if that Lake Arena goes down.
Yeah, I mean, being a master plan, really all it needs is a mention, and we can certainly do that.
Yeah.
Are there grants available maybe from the state for recreation? We could
Probably.
look at
Well, it wouldn't be a township thing, it'd be.
a county.
It'd be a
would
county
have to-
thing.
It'd have to be,
So
kind of an authority.
the language in the master plan would be probably something like support any county-wide recreation. And so language could definitely be included, but like as you just said, how it applies to the township specifically is something we would need to consider.
Well, we did talk about a
Would have to be
recreation.
Passed in the township.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
All the townships would have to be part of it.
Yeah, and maybe we go back to discussing the whole recreation authority, that sort of there were some people really opposed to that, but if we don't do something for
Something's
recreation,
gotta be done.
so, we do the trails, so I don't know how the trail people got the trail thing, and everybody agreed to fund that through millage. I don't, somebody, and I know it's a long process, but you have to have something to get people to want to come and live in this community. and people are going to work online. And so what's the draw to come here versus to go to wherever? I mean, you have to have something for everyone to enjoy, not just a certain group. Recreation happens from birth to death. And if we only focus on one group, we're not going to be a community.
You know, Mike Springer did a wonderful job getting a $900,000 grant to renovate Travers Park up in Big Bay. And then the mine kicked in $100,000 too, I think, something like that, to make up because it was $1 million. And it's a reimbursement grant, so they had to come up with money out of their own. But I mean, they're gonna get that money back. I mean, I don't know, does anybody, I mean, Mike, you know, since he left here, he's my neighbor, but I haven't really dug into how he got that.
Well, I'm somewhat familiar with like the DNR trust fund. That was the pool of money that we had applied to for the acquisition of the property up here,
Oh, yeah.
the now Veterans Home property.
Okay.
I do know the trust fund, you can do acquisition or development. Get funding for either acquisition of a property or development of that property. Whether and I know we're kind of talking of a much higher scale than just like an ice arena. I don't know the applicability for an ice arena for a trust fund grant, because I think that centers more so on like public access to beaches and trails and forests and parks like up in Big Bay. But yeah, just kind of.
Well, you know, what's her name? Tina Morin from the city. She's big on making, with that trail that she's doing and so forth. I mean, there's probably a lot of good ideas floating around out there. We just maybe gotta get together.
So maybe we need to make a request of the Recreation Committee. The Recreation Committee, my understanding is, falls underneath the Planning Commission. And I think they might be excited to have some projects. And I did hear somewhere, where we need to have some seed money to apply for things. And however, but if no one comes to the board saying, I have this project, and we'd really like it to grow, and maybe we start with the Recreation Committee. I know they haven't met much.
Who's on the recreation?
Well, I am, and I haven't met at all with them.
Okay.
So I think they've had some people not be able to come to meetings, but I don't know, is that Jason or you?
Jason is the director.
Jason's, okay.
With the idea, the point of seed money for projects and not having people come forward with projects, I mean, part of the issue, kind of like Denny pointed out with grant funding, is you need local buy-in or the
Yep.
local match. And so if we don't have that through seed money or anywhere else, then we can't go for any of these grants.
So the board would say to you, so I'm going to speak for the board for a moment, the board would say to you, bring us a project. So if you don't bring us a project, Linda Winslow keeps saying, a roof over the ice arena, and they laugh at me every time I say that. But in reality, a roof over the ice arena would provide different recreational opportunities than just ice. So it's not, I just need someone to give us $1 million. But, well, you never know, right? You never know. But I think as a board, the township board, bring us some projects, bring us some ideas. So Planning Commission, say to your Recreation Committee, bring us some ideas.
Well, I think a good place for the ice arena is Marquette Township. You know, you kind of want to get out of Marquette just so the Ishpeming and the Gandhi people don't, you know, I know they wouldn't like still going into Marquette, so you kind of have to centralize it a little bit further west, but still kind of keep it by population center, which most of the people are in Marquette. So kind of, to me, it'd be kind of a township thing, you know, more than anything else, which would benefit the township, so kind of benefit us to kind of try and get something going also at the same time, and would benefit the whole county as well.
So do we go to
What
the
do you
county
think?
board? Do you go to the county board, Jim, and say, hey,
Talked about taking the mall down and putting 4 pieces of ice up there, but they paid their taxes, so.
Yeah.
Somebody was interested in doing that, though.
Yeah, I think you did have to go to the county board and, but then you have to have an election and, for it to pass and the millage and just like with the dual network, but I mean, it's gotta, can start somewhere sometime.
Yeah, I agree. You have to
5 or
start.
10 years, what's the life on the arena right now?
Well, certainly has a history, that's what I'll say. Anyway,
Okay, but that was the only thing, I'll email the other stuff then.
Okay.
Anybody else have anything on the master plan? 5 to 8? Okay. Any correspondence?
Yep, this last page in your packet is a list of committee openings. We do know a couple of you are aware of that. So just instructions on there on how to apply. So. And then also, I guess I should have, before we approve the agenda, added this as an agenda item, but the 2026 meeting dates are at your table tonight. The highlighted, and this is what we need to briefly discuss, the highlighted November date, November Planning Commission meeting, obviously, as it says, falls on Veterans Day. And township offices are closed on Veterans Day. So either we cancel that meeting altogether or reschedule it right now. Discussing with Jason, we were leaning towards canceling it altogether. And if we need to call one in November, we call one in November. But I mean, we're in that time of year right now, and we got a full agenda tonight. But as far as like site plan reviews and things like that, we really don't see too many of those in the November, December, January months. So
You're saying you'd like a motion tonight
To-
to cancel the scheduled planning commission meeting, which is scheduled for Veterans Day.
and then approve the rest of the meeting dates. Yep.
and it will stay at 7 PM. That's the time that I shared with Randy that this group still likes. Is that correct? 7 PM?
If I remember, then you can't get here much earlier, so that was,
Yeah, I stopped my Tai Chi class, so I can get here earlier.
it doesn't matter to me, whatever,
Seven's good.
whatever everyone else thinks.
I can do whatever, it doesn't matter to me.
Bethany, what
Do
time?
Whatever, to 6:30.
Would you rather earlier?
Move it up a little bit,
Early?
just,
Well, I can, what is staff, what works better for staff?
I
That
mean-
would be a question.
Me personally, but I mean, this is just my 2 cents. I prefer a little earlier, but it's
I
not a
kinda,
big deal.
I
It's late.
think it'd be nice to have it a little earlier and doesn't, just sit around and wait the whole night. What's the time, all of you think, any suggestions?
6 o'clock?
6 or 6:30, you know.
6:30.
6,
Just just a half an hour.
6 PM?
6:30? Who wants
Yeah,
6?
Either is fine.
It doesn't matter.
Let's do 6.
Okay.
So you'll let Randy know,
Sure.
since he already typed all this up.
We'll start January 14th, so we'll start our next meeting.
Are we gonna do 6 or 6:50 or 6:30?
6.
6.
Oh,
You need a motion, or you're just gonna do
Well, we need a motion at least for approval of the schedule with November 11 removed.
Okay, and then have the time changed to 6.
Yep, you can throw that in the motion too.
Okay.
it? I'll make that motion, what you just said.
Okay. Got it.
Okay, is there a second?
Support.
Any more discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. 6 o'clock on the 14th. You see any problems with that?
I love it. I
Okay.
tried to convince the board when I was on.
Haven't fixed
Yeah,
all
Change it to
this.
6.
Yeah.
Sitting around for
Yep.
a couple hours waiting,
Sit around and get nervous for that last hour,
home so late. This is a chatty group.
right, what else? Township board report.
So
Linda.
the Township Board met on Wednesday, December 3rd. Most of the discussion focused around passing motions. We approved the budget as presented. We did a budget resolution and the Township General Appropriations Act. We did the committee wage increases along with the officers in the township increases. And just so that you all know, the way the increases work they're the same as our paid employees get. It's 2.5% per year. And we did that at one point because it gets crazy when you don't do raises, kind of thing. And then it's a big lump sum, and this just works better for us. We also, that was pretty much it. Yeah. And our next meeting will be on December 17th. So come join us if you'd like, or if you find it easier, you can always sign in and listen online. But they are taped, as our trusty person back there is taping us. So we get to be live.
Is anything, have we heard anything on the closing for the private party?
I have a few things I was gonna share. Do you want me to do that now?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yes, Renovari, John reported at the last meeting that Mitch is changing banks, and he's kind of hoping, John kind of gave him the date, December 31st, to have this done. That's what the board was encouraging. And he thinks he can make that work. I guess we'll see if he can, he's trying. The two lawsuits that were tied into Horseville have been dismissed, so that's done. The raises I was gonna mention, the tax levies, the appropriations, the fee schedule. And the reason I mention the fee schedule is for anybody that uses the community room, or rents it, I should say. The fee structure's changed a little bit, so it's a little bit cheaper if you have to do it an 8-hour shift. For a wedding or a meeting or something like that. So it's structured, so it's cheaper. And we also approved the manager's contract for 5 years. So that's pretty, we're stuck with them for another 5 years.
There's no appeal of those lawsuits then, that's done too?
They could, I suppose, yeah.
So deadline?
But PUD, if you remember, on the Longyear's PUD expired, they had an extension that expired in October. That was their second year. So it goes away. If they decide, the last I heard, they were working on something, they got new engineers and were redesigning. Maybe you heard that too, I don't know.
I think you know more than I do at this point.
I don't know, I
Yeah.
haven't talked to anybody, because they've got a new, I don't know what the title was, I think it was new now, since Alyssa left. Anyway, they're supposed to be doing something different, and I don't know. In fact, I told my board, there's a rollover accident at Forestville a week ago, or 10 days ago or something, nobody was hurt, it wasn't fatal, but I called the road commission right away. Well, actually, I was up there for a meeting, and I said, does this help or hurt the statistics on that intersection? Because that'll go into the record for the state to say whether or not the intersection is still considered dangerous or not. So, Pete said he would look at that, email it, so we'll look at that. There's something else I was gonna say on Renovari, and I can't remember what it was. That they were, shoot, if I think of it, I'll let you know. But it's supposed to, oh, I know, the Mishta wants some kind of new document or something from the board saying that it's still a viable project. So it's gonna, the discussion will be on the next agenda. I don't know, maybe John will hear something from Mitch by then. Give us a date or something. Purchase agreement signed by both of us. So, I don't know.
Hey Lynn, just out of curiosity, that service service road that the township put in behind Goodwill Complex in there. Does the township have to plow that out, or does the county plow that out?
You can call Lenny anytime. I abuse him and say the potholes are big enough, the Jeep is
No,
wrong.
who plows it? I'm just
The
curious.
township.
Well, Lenny
Township?
does kind of keep track of it. I don't know if he goes all the way around, you know,
Yeah.
as far as grading and all that, and plowing, so I don't know if they just go to Goodwill, and then the rest,
It's gonna be a
yeah.
service road, and it alleviates so much traffic off of US 41 and
That's why
accidents,
it's in.
because both of those intersections are deadly. I'm through there 2 or 3 times a day, and the amount of traffic on that whole service road is unbelievable. And I even see semis that are making deliveries coming down that road. I saw one yesterday morning, and it just alleviates so much because there's no relief. People are up to probably 45, 50 miles an hour from the Walmart roundabout to that exit between, like, say, the dollar store and the Starbucks complex. And then by the time you get to the County Road 492 entrance exit, I mean, you can't pull out if somebody's pulling in or turning onto 492 coming east. You cannot pull out because your line of sight, there could be somebody in that blind spot, and by the time you pull out, you're gonna get nailed, and they're coming fast
Yep.
through there. It's deadly.
That's why
And
the
with-
road was put in, was because of
Yeah.
the holdup on.
I'm so worried
Black
that
Friday.
if this development goes through, I don't see how they're gonna put, I think it's 47 units on that 5 acres. But with that road going away, I'll tell you what, there's gonna be some major traffic concerns. I mean, if you don't see it every day using that, and I do, 2 or 3 times a day, I'm through there, and I pay attention to it every time. And sometimes I go down to Commerce just to the light because I'm too afraid to pull out, and I got a V8. I mean, I can move when I pull out, but I'll tell you what, if I didn't have a V8 engine, I wouldn't even go to that
So
intersection.
it's point out at 492.
492 or,
41.
or the entrance exit between the Michaels and Dollar Store complex and where Papa Murphy's is and Starbucks. It's very deadly in there. And there was just an accident there a couple of weeks ago too, when the weather was bad. There was an accident there.
Well, the problem is you don't have that stoplight anymore to break up the traffic, so you can't.
That was the
Before you
first
can do
thing
that, at least.
that I mentioned when we saw the
I-
Renovary project, was that road.
Every day I go through there and I think of that, and somebody, there's gonna be accidents. I just hope there's no loss of life, but it's gonna be bad.
Maybe they'll,
That many housing units, how many people with vehicles, and, you know, they gotta get out to work and whatever. They're not all gonna go down to the light at Commerce or whatever. It's gonna
We
be a
asked the state to-
big issue.
Well, there should be a pull-out,
a turn lane.
Deceleration lane.
a pullover lane, whatever you call it.
A turn.
Wouldn't that be part of the?
That would be on the
road development
highway.
off of 492
I don't know. I mean, I don't know what the planning commission said when they did all that stuff. Yeah, I mean, even getting into the mall off of Warner Street, into the mall, they have that all blocked off now. It's a disaster trying to get into the mall.
It is, and
The
it's-
fire truck can't to make that turn. No, I don't know why it's
It's
still
not
out.
even
That's what
allowed.
do you know if we could ask
That back
them?
portion.
Yeah, why is,
The snow removal back there, it doesn't even look good. I was there early Sunday morning for, I'm involved with therapy dogs, and we were testing therapy teams in the mall early Sunday morning before they opened. And the plowing back there was terrible. When I drove my vehicle through, I thought, I was looking, okay, if we were driving a fire truck through here, this would be quite the obstacle course.
or like Coles.
Yeah, behind Coles.
Do you think there's any way we could ask them to plow that and keep that open so that you could get in there?
I'm pretty sure it's the mall owners that closed it.
Right.
At least with
I'm-
the potholes. the
If
snow
I'm
filled.
not mistaken, that driveway is now part of the North Iron Church parcel.
well, how do they own the driveway?
I
That's
don't
just
know.
How
the
do they
parcel
own that
lines.
parking lot?
So they actually
there's a common wall property line in the mall building.
Yeah.
Kind of, because it's the old J.C. Penney's, so like where you would walk into J.C. Penney's or where you walk into the church, I don't think it's open in the mall, I haven't been in there in ages. There's a common wall property line, so you can do away with the setbacks and all that. So there's a common wall property line, and then they own the parking lot and that driveway,
Oh
if
my
I'm not mistaken.
So maybe we can ask them to open that back up because it really is dangerous. And you know, people will say to me, well, the fire truck can go out onto 41. Really?
That's.
You have
that's
3
about
minutes after a
3
cardiac
minutes,
event, okay, 3 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, can, like the chief go over there and look at that? I mean, maybe there's an actual violation, because don't you have to, I mean,
We haven't
you
certainly
have to put,
progressed.
right, to allow for fire, because if they can't get to it, their insurance may not pay out if something burns down too. You
Well,
know, think
I don't know, I can't
They
believe
block
that.
it because the holes were so bad, so
I
it's
don't know.
liability.
Yeah, they were
It's probably liability, and it's not probably liability, it's not.
I can't believe that was approved. I can't believe that wasn't, had to be approved by the planning commission to let that in.
How about if we,
Approved it because we sold the lot, and that was the actual.
Eric, would you be able to check with them by any chance to see who does own that?
Jason and I were actually talking about that driveway last week, 2 weeks ago, and we have not yet, but we were talking about contacting them to say,
Might be
hey,
a requirement
plow
that
it,
that has
right.
to be
And that's
open.
what we were thinking too, either from the fire department or from zoning, there might be a requirement in there that either the access or
traffic situation.
just maintaining your property and
Mhm.
especially the roadway.
Yep.
So, yeah, we'll look into
It
it.
would be something little that would really help a lot.
Yep.
Yeah, good customer, good neighborhood thing.
Okay, no rec committee report then? since-
No rec committee.
I don't know if, Linda, you heard from Jason at all, but he did say you're meeting next week or then the week after?
Next week.
Next week and discussing 2026 meeting dates and then the master plan sections that
Yay.
apply. So
Yeah, so we should get,
then you can.
I'll tell them, bring us a project, right,
you can
Lynn?
Talk about projects.
Yeah, really.
Okay, 9C, planning and zoning report, Eric?
I've got nothing else.
Nothing else? Okay. Any announcements from anyone? Public comment from anyone? Any additional comments by planning commissioners?
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
Yes,
Yeah.
half the 20s are gone already, huh? Can't believe
There's a different way to look at that.
it. Yeah. All right, meeting adjourned,
Thank you.
4.